I remember that night as if it happened yesterday. Our small, quiet town of Evermore was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone. Nothing extraordinary ever happened until it did. The first body was discovered in an old, abandoned cabin at the edge of the forest. It was a young woman. Her body lay as though she were peacefully sleeping, but in her hand was a single black feather. Her chest had been cut open, and her heart was missing, not torn out in a violent frenzy, no removed with surgical precision. The entire town was shaken. We thought it was an isolated event, some drifter passing through. But then, just a few weeks later, another body was found, and another. Each victim was left in a similar state, posed delicately, a raven's feather in their hand, and a Latin phrase painted nearby, Nox venit sicut for. It meant, the night comes like a thief. The media latched onto the story, calling the killer the Midnight Raven. Over the next 6 months, 5 people fell victim to this shadowy figure, each killed at the stroke of midnight. Fear gripped the town. People stopped going out after dark, locking their doors and windows as soon as the sun set. And then she came. Detective Amelia Grant, a profiler from the State Bureau, was brought in to assist our small police department. From the moment she arrived, you could tell she was sharp, observant. She had this quiet intensity, like she was always 5 steps ahead of everyone else. It didn't take her long to uncover something we'd all missed. All the victims had one thing in common. They were connected to an orphanage, St. Magnus Orphanage, that had burned down 20 years ago. The orphanage had been shut down amid allegations of abuse, and several children had gone missing before the fire. Amelia dug deeper and found that one of the orphans, Elliot Grayson, had survived the fire but vanished from foster care when he turned 18. No one had heard from him since. But Amelia discovered he had a disturbing obsession with ravens and surgery. He'd even published poetry under the pseudonym Corvus. The breakthrough came when Amelia traced Elliot to the local hospital, where he worked as a janitor on the night shift. It was the perfect cover. No one paid attention to him, and he had access to everything he needed. One cold, moonlit night, Amelia and her team tracked Elliot to an abandoned chapel deep in the woods. I'll never forget the stories they told about what they found inside. It was like stepping into a nightmare. The chapel had been turned into a macabre shrine. The altar was covered in black feathers and surgical tools, with photographs of his victims arranged like trophies. Elliot was there, waiting for them, holding his next victim, a local reporter who'd been investigating the orphanage fire. There was a standoff. Amelia tried to talk him down, appealing to the humanity that might still exist within him. She told him she wanted to hear his story, that his pain deserved to be understood. Somehow she got through to him. He let the reporter go and surrendered. In the days that followed, the full story came to light. Elliot's journal revealed the horrors he'd endured at St. Magnus, the abuse, the neglect, and the fire that claimed the lives of the only family he'd ever known. His victims, it turned out, were all former staff members of the orphanage. The killings weren't random. They were his way of seeking vengeance. Elliot is behind bars now, but the scars he left on this town will never fade. People here still talk about the Midnight Raven, about the way he turned our peaceful community into a living nightmare. And sometimes, when the wind blows just right through the trees, it almost sounds like the cawing of a raven, as if his shadow still lingers.